Yo guys, what is happening? How are you all doing? My name is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and welcome back. So man, it feels good to be back. Thank you guys so much for being patient. I was, of course, having a fantastic staycation this past weekend. I had a very long weekend, took a couple of days PTO from work, and my girlfriend and I had two of our best friends from back home in Denver staying with us this past weekend. We did a whole bunch of stuff. We went out to the coast, we got to see the ocean, we got to drink a lot of whiskey, and we were just doing the thing. Did get to play some video games, which will actually come up later in this video, and, gave me a little bit of a break from making any videos and recording anything for the channel. It was nice to take a break, considering this is something I just do really on the side for fun for the most part. But now that everything is said and done and our friends have flown back home, it is time to talk a little bit more video game stuff, and I am super excited to do so. So what we're going to be discussing is, conveniently enough, two huge games that actually came out over this past weekend when we did have people visiting us and I wasn't actually able to make any videos or any updates for you guys for Rule of Two Review. So we are talking about Monster Hunter World and Dragonball FighterZ. Like I said, two huge games, very anticipated, very, very different games, and both have very passionate fan bases. I am, in the video game space, a huge fan of both series. Love Monster Hunter. I've discussed it before. It's a series that's actually very deeply connected to myself and my friend group, my personal friend group from back home in Denver. Every time a new Monster Hunter game comes out, we get really passionately dedicated to these games, and we love to meet up online and stuff and just kind of run through them for months and months on end. Monster Hunter Ultimate on the Wii U, when that was brand new, was so much fun. I mean, we just got together so often and played that game and really powered through it, and it was really fantastic. Dragon Ball FighterZ is interesting because, for myself, Dragon Ball Z happens to be one of my absolute all-time favorite pieces of, nerd story nerddom in all things that are geeky, if you want to call it that. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm a huge, Lord of the Rings fan and all of these other things. And right up with my favorite kind of nerd cultures is Dragon Ball Z. I freaking love the show, and there have not been very many good games in the past. And so FighterZ really had a lot of positive buzz leading up to it, and it looked like this dream come true Dragon Ball Z game. And I, of course, owned these games. They did come out when I couldn't game too much this past weekend, but I picked them both up, and I wanted to discuss these titles and how they might even relate to Nintendo. So, of course, the big Nintendo conversation when it comes to these two games centers around the fact that they are games that the Nintendo and the Switch audience very much would like to play on our Nintendo Switches, and they're two series that would also make a lot of sense to see on the Nintendo Switch at some point. And so here we are, just within the first calendar year of the Nintendo Switch's launch, and we get a brand new Monster Hunter game, the first one in several years, and the first one for a console in a very, very long time, by the way. And then, of course, we get this brand new Dragon Ball game. And yes, we did have Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 that launched in 2016, and then, of course, last year we did eventually get a port of that to the Switch as well. That game has sold pretty successfully on the Switch by all accounts, and so now we have these two new games in these series coming out, and both of them, unfortunately, so far, have skipped the Nintendo Switch, and we have no real confirmation of whether or not they might eventually make it to the Switch. And, like I said, a lot of people are hoping to see them, and so I wanted to discuss a little bit, now that I've been playing both of these absolutely marvelous games for the last few days, in and out, having my friends here visiting. I wanted to discuss if they could make sense to see come to the Switch and what the likelihood might be. So I want to start with Monster Hunter World a little bit because it's kind of the larger scale game. There's a lot more going on here, and it's the series that really has a very, very strong history with Nintendo because, of course, we know once Monster Hunter first made it to a Nintendo platform, which is for the Nintendo Wii, it was Monster Hunter Tri, and man, I don't know, was that 2009 or 2010? I want to say 2010, actually, when that game actually launched on the Wii, and it was awesome. I mean, it was so good. That was when my friends and I actually discovered how much we loved the series, and really ever since then, it's been pretty much exclusive to Nintendo platforms. It was a Nintendo Wii game, and then of course it made it to the 3DS with many different iterations of Monster Hunter on 3DS, and we did of course get Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate released on the Wii U as well, which was basically just kind of a remaster, an HD up-res remaster of Monster Hunter Tri with some extra added stuff. And, I mean, I gotta say, those games were so good. Capcom and the Monster Hunter name had such a fantastic kind of marriage with Nintendo on those platforms. I mean, even what those games were achieving on the 3DS itself, an outdated handheld, was impressive. They got beautiful visuals, very deep, huge gameplay ideas were happening there, and they also sold incredibly well. I mean, there was so much good stuff happening there. And then the Switch comes out, it's a huge hit, everyone loves it, and then along comes Monster Hunter World, and it was announced only for PS4 and Xbox One. No Nintendo or Nintendo Switch version. They didn't even make some weird downscaled 3DS version, which in its own way is kind of surprising because, of course, that, you know, those games would, that game would sell so well on the 3DS, and Capcom has decided to abandon it completely. They did, of course, make the Monster Hunter Double Cross, which was the most recent Monster Hunter Generations, an up-resed remaster for the Nintendo Switch, but that was Japan only, nothing as far as North America. So we're all sitting here, all us Nintendo Switch owners are sitting here just drooling at the prospect of this brand new Monster Hunter game to come to the Switch. And so I will say, I don't want to go too much into like the game itself and make this like a review because it would take forever. But having played it a little bit, I got to play the beta with my buddies. I've been playing all day today, actually. I've been playing the game itself myself, and man, it is so good. This is probably going to end up being the greatest Monster Hunter ever. I've only put a few hours in, so I can't get too deep into my thoughts there, but it is so wonderful. They have really lowered the barrier of entry. They've added a very strong narrative that makes sense and feels natural for the game, and having so much of a kind of a character interaction and even simple things like voice acting, as well as the large worlds as opposed to the tiny maps that you kind of treat like a room-to-room sort of traversal. It's really great, and easily the best and most fast-paced gameplay that they've introduced so far. And so now we come to the idea of this coming to the Nintendo Switch. What is happening here? Why didn't this game come to the Switch, whereas Monster Hunter Nintendo has made so much sense and had so much success in the past? A few confirmed things have come from Capcom over the past couple of weeks. They basically ultimately stated that they just started working on this game too early for it to make sense for the Nintendo Switch at the time of the game's launch. I mean, it was many years ago that they started working on this game. The Nintendo Switch hadn't been announced, it hadn't been confirmed. Who knows what Capcom knew behind the scenes about it? I recently even heard that I don't even think that a lot of the components that make up the Switch were even available or on the market at the time that Capcom started making this game. So they knew nothing about Nintendo's hardware, and they were basically designing their new Monster Hunter game. They had to make it available for whatever hardware made sense and they knew about at that time, which happens to be the PS4 and Xbox One. But now the Nintendo Switch is out, now Monster Hunter World has released, so will we ever see this game on the Switch? While nothing is impossible, anything could happen at any time. I'm not going to pretend to be Nostradamus here, but I got to tell you guys, I don't really see it happening. It is a huge game, a very ambitious game. So much is going on here. Graphically, it's not like the best looking game you've ever seen, but it's doing a lot of stuff visually that makes me think that while it would be possible on the Switch, I think it would just be so costly and time-consuming to really make this game work on the Nintendo Switch's hardware that, honestly, we've probably just missed the boat here. Maybe if they were, developing this game alongside the other versions for the Switch, like, they started making Monster Hunter World, and they started work on the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch version all together from day one, I think we probably would have absolutely seen this game on the Switch, especially with how well the Switch has sold. But now that it's kind of a too late situation where the game is already launched for the other consoles, I mean, I just don't really see it happening, you guys. And it's a shame because, boy, would this game make a killing on the Switch. I think it would sell so well, and it would be so fun to have this game both in a home console or a portable fashion, to take this game on the go, or for myself to play it in my living room or in bed falling asleep. Wow, it would just be so cool. So it's very unfortunate that we didn't get Monster Hunter World on the Switch, but I have to say, if I was a betting man, I would not expect to see this game come to the Switch. Now, Dragonball FighterZ is a whole different game in a whole different situation. And I will say, I'm sure a lot of you guys have already been yelling in the comments by the time you make it to this point in the video, but I know the game is actually pronounced Dragonball FighterZ, but I just like saying Dragonball FighterZ. When the game was first shown, before we heard anyone officially pronounce the name as Dragonball FighterZ, I remember everyone was calling it Dragonball FighterZ. And so you know what? That's just what I'm comfortable saying, and that's what I'm going to continue to say. That's how I'm going to refer to the game, and if you hate it, too bad. I'm going to call it Dragonball FighterZ, and that's what I'm going to do. So, anyway, Dragonball FighterZ is a different game in a different situation. A, because that game could probably much more easily be ported to the Switch in a much more timely fashion, and also because we've had rumors recently start to surface that the game might already actually be in the works behind closed doors for the Nintendo Switch. And so it's all the typical kind of rumor stuff. It's just people on Reddit and on other forum boards saying, I have inside information, and my inside info says that this game is coming to the Switch. Believe me, because I've put it on the internet. And that's really where it comes from. But the thing is, there's so much about it that makes sense that it kind of becomes easier to believe. Now, again, just like Monster Hunter, I'm not going to sit here and spend all this time going into like my review of the game. But if I was to give you a quick minute or two discussing the game, oh my freaking gosh, Dragon Ball FighterZ, you guys, this game is a dream, an absolute dream to play. It is a wonder to behold, and just sit here with your speakers blaring and your huge, big, bright TV playing this game and just let everything that makes Dragon Ball awesome just smack you in the face as you play it. It is so wonderful. And I did have the advantage of having my friend in person here with me, so I got to do a lot of local play with this game. I wasn't online, I wasn't doing the quest stuff, I wasn't, doing all the weird connecting to the internet kind of crap that's thrown into this game. All I've done so far is many hours and like probably well over 100 matches with my best friend sitting next to me as we're screaming and shooting and yelling and drinking and just doing the Dragon Ball FighterZ thing. And in that experience so far, in that environment, it has been so wonderful. And the thing is about this game, what I'll say, before I get a little bit deeper into the Switch thing, is that it's so fun to play. The controls, the presentation, everything about it just works so beautifully and seamlessly. And it's the kind of thing where, and I said this to my friend last night as we played our last match before we had to all go to bed, before going to the airport this morning, I was like, you know what? This game could have been half as good as it is, and it still would have been a great game, and still worth my full day one purchase of this game. But it is better than that. It's twice as good as half as good as it, which is, of course, how math works. And it's just so incredible, you guys. I mean, this game, they nailed it. I cannot wait to get more into the single-player stuff, some of the quests, and even get online and get my ass completely handed to me. It's going to be fantastic. And so I don't want to gush anymore about this or about Monster Hunter. I'll just get to the whole Switch thing. And you know what? It's hard for me not to believe that this game is going to come to the Switch. So very opposite of Monster Hunter, where I would probably never believe that game will make it to the Switch, unfortunately. Dragon Ball, I think, has a really good shot, man. I would be shocked if by the end of the year, not only will we have learned that the game is coming to the Switch, but I would think the game will launch for the Switch by the end of the year. If there's any truth to some of the rumors and the random things we've heard on the internet that they've already been hard at work on the Switch behind closed doors, I would think that they're hopefully ready to get this game out in the calendar year of 2018. That would be so freaking awesome. And I mean, the game just makes sense. Yes, it looks beautiful and does amazing things visually, but I think that the Switch could very easily handle it. The frame rate's going to be part of the issue because it is an incredibly fast-paced game. There are a ton of effects and crazy animations going on, but it's all hand-drawn stuff. And most of it is in 2D, so that kind of gets me really excited at the prospect of how easy it would probably be for Arc System Works to be able to port this game to the Switch. And similarly, just like with Monster Hunter, I think this game would make a killing. I think it would sell very well. Likely, it might even sell better than a Monster Hunter World if they are both made available. It's tough to say because Monster Hunter is a very huge name, and from what I've heard in this over the course of the last few days, Monster Hunter has already sold incredibly well. They're putting up very good numbers. So I guess it's kind of tough to predict that, but I just feel like the Dragon Ball FighterZ experience being sold to the Nintendo and the Switch audience, I just feel like it might be a really special combination, and there would be a lot of absolutely fantastic things happening there. I just really think this game should come to the Switch because everyone's going to make money, everyone is going to be happy, everyone's going to be picking up and playing that game. I mean, Xenoverse 2, a very different kind of Dragon Ball game that got less favorable reviews, although overall still considered a solid game, that sold really well on the Switch, man. I mean, there's no reason to think that any quality Dragon Ball licensed game wouldn't do well on a Nintendo platform and on the Switch with its portable nature. I would kill to be able to play some of these amazing matches on my portable Switch. I just think it would look so fantastic and beautiful popping off that mini screen. But I've also been playing it on my huge 50-inch TV with my speakers blaring and my buddy next to me, and man, it's just so good. So fantastic. So again, whereas I really wouldn't put any money on Monster Hunter coming, I think we're well over a 50% shot that Dragon Ball FighterZ comes to the Switch. I've heard a couple of rumors and rumblings even many, many months ago before the rumors started that maybe the game might actually be being worked on for the Switch. So you know what, let's just all cross our fingers that one or both of these games somehow make it to Nintendo's console. So that'll probably be it for me today. A really fun video to discuss and kind of come back to form and just kind of touch base with you guys after taking the last 5 or 6 days off to do some staycation stuff with our best friends in town. And you know what? Like I said, what a great weekend this was. The first strong weekend in gaming. We got a new Monster Hunter game that is amazing. We got a new Dragon Ball game that is amazing. Nothing really kicking us in the face as far as Switch stuff yet, so it hasn't been great for Nintendo in January, at least as far as releases. We did get a Nintendo Direct, and we did get the Nintendo Labo reveal, so that's great. But none of that stuff is anything we're doing in the month of January. These games came out in January, and my goodness, it couldn't be great. This is easily going to be one of the best weekends in gaming throughout all of 2018, and I am so happy to report that and so happy to see that. So, will we see these games on the Switch? If we did, would you be interested in picking them up? I do want to hear from you guys. Please discuss Dragon Ball FighterZ and Monster Hunter World. What do you think of these games? What do you think about the companies behind them? Have you been playing them? Do you enjoy them? Do you want to see them on the Switch? Do you not care if they come to the Switch? All of these good things. Please, of course, share your opinion below, and that'll be it. So, thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.